Well, as a meteorologist, I was trained to track drought, not predict when a lake was going to start snitching on the mob. I appreciate you spending time with me today. Thank you for liking, subscribing, being a part of Bud Ford Comedy. Finals week in my master's class, I've never been more ready to be less educated. Graduate school is a weird thing because nobody makes you do it. You volunteer for the stress, the anxiety, and then you try to figure out how you're going to pay for it. Doesn't make sense. And since you put it that way, now I feel like a fool. Lake Mead got so low, stopped being a reservoir and became a true crime podcast with boat ramps. Things have changed over there because the weather is doing police work. As a meteorologist, I'm taught to spend time with drought maps, snowpack reports, river gauges, reservoir levels, a lot of other stuff, weathery stuff, right? That's all normal. However, I'm not used to saying today's forecast includes sunshine, low humidity, and possible mob evidence emerging from a recreational lake. Thanks. Now we'll go to commercial. It's not what I do. Sort of a new category. CSI. The Weather Channel. But I am fascinated by mob stuff, aren't you? Who's not? Based on the number of movies and the number of times we go back to mob stories when it comes to movies, it seems like we have a fascination with them. And again, why wouldn't we? Seems like back then the mob was like the Wild West, but they had much cooler clothes. Every one of them owned a restaurant. They all had a cool nickname. They didn't appear to have normal job hours or a normal job description. And a guy named Tony the Ant knows why another guy was named Nicky Slim. And somehow they're both in charge of vending machines and casino money and whether you get to see Tuesday or not. That world has fascinated me my whole life. Now, I'm not telling you I support crime, but what I am telling you is that I support snacks, air conditioning, and minding my own business if you're in the mob listening right now. But old Vegas stories, those hold my attention, and this is one of them. So I'm going to tell you about all this, and you can use this story at lunch tomorrow, and people be like, ooh, you on top of stuff. The great thing about the Wild West, and especially Vegas, is it felt lawless, dusty, dangerous. Everybody's full of money and dressed like they have dinner commitments after the felony. So when Lake Mead starts dropping and bodies start showing up, well, that story is going to grab me, and it's going to grab a lot of people because all of a sudden the storage unit that was Lake Mead is no longer that anymore. In fact, now it's a storage unit with a boat permit and everybody can come hang out. That's not okay. Imagine this. You're not bothering anybody on Lake Mead. It's a great sunshiny Saturday, blue water, desert cliffs. It's like a postcard on this lake. Now you come up near the shore and there's a rusted barrel that's been underwater for decades. Inside the barrel, they're going to find bones. They're going to find a pelvis, clothing, and shoes that trace back to the Kmart era. And that detail stopped me. If we were watching TV right now and this was video in one of those shows, they would say, back to the Kmart era, you say? The shoes dated back to the Kmart era. So what do we know? Well, they can't identify this man with dental records, no. But they can look at his shoes and go, this man shopped at Kmart because they're tracks. We all know that. Interesting, right? The man died, it's clear, during the Blue Light Special Administration. Everyone knows that. Now, if you're young and you're like, what is Kmart? It's back before Walmart. In fact, it was Walmart before Walmart got confident. Same thing, smelled like popcorn tires, fluorescent lights. If your mom was all like, hey, we're going to Kmart. You know what that meant? It meant she was probably getting curtains and you weren't going to get Nikes. That wasn't happening. So imagine this now. You have homicide detectives on a lake bed trying to date this mob hit. When did it happen? Trying to figure it all out. It looks like forensic science, but really, it's American retail archaeology, right? Because we're looking at discount footwear now. And the only reason that they found him was because, again, the water level dropped so far. Because 20, 30 years ago, it was so far down there, nobody was going to find him. Plan was simple. You'd put the guy in the bucket, you drop the bucket off in Lake Mead, the rest would just do what it does. The plan worked right up until drought showed up. See, the mob didn't plan on that. And next thing you know, evaporation screwing everybody out of some secrets, right? Mob thought they could beat law enforcement, but again, they could not account for evaporation. It's an oversight. You can plan for a witness, you can plan for cops, you can plan for alibis, but eventually the atmosphere says, I would like to reopen this file. You don't want that. The meteorology angle gets me. Usually when I'm talking about drought, it has to do with agriculture, water supply, power generation, boats, ramps, the serious stuff. But when the drought also starts dragging secrets into daylight and the lake's going down and old Vegas is coming up, well, now all of a sudden it's not just weather. Now it's the desert going, you know what? I'm not keeping these secrets any longer. I've held this enough. Here it is. You can have it back. And then we all started speculating. You think it was a mob hit? You think it was connected to old Vegas like Stardust World back in the day? Names start popping up. People are like, Tony Spilotro, you know he did it. You know he was there, man. Why wouldn't he? Because he's in all the old Vegas stuff, right? Tony Spilotro was the man. He's like, if the mob had a pop-up ad, he'd be their boy. Back then, it was casino bosses, showgirls, sports, books, cash, cigarettes, smoke, steakhouses, men in suits who looked like they could make you disappear with a phone call. Your blood pressure would change. Now, Vegas is not the same anymore. Vegas is less mobster and more resort fee. Older guys, probably a lot more dangerous, but at least they told you they were stealing from you. Today's hotel charges are insane over there. Wi-Fi, you're going to pay for that $100 a night if you want to park a car, which is not organized crime, but it definitely has structure. I mean, I think we should look at that. It's definitely some type of robbery, if not highway. There is something haunting about the whole thing, though. On the surface, it's just a mob story, right? We have a barrel, a lake, Kmart shoes, possible hitmen, but underneath that, back whenever this happened, somebody lost a person, right? Somebody's family's got a hole in it, and they've had it in there for decades, and nobody knows the facts. Now we may be able to get them. In that barrel, that body, while it sounds like a movie detail, was somebody's son, somebody's husband, father, brother that never came home that night. And Lake Mead is finally willing to give up mob history, and it's also going to bring some grief, though, right? There's a lot of stories that probably should stay down there that are going to start coming to light if this continues. Vegas was built on forgetting. They don't do clocks. They don't do windows. They don't do last calls. No consequences until checkout, right? And then everybody moves on back with their life. But the desert apparently remembers. And when the lake drops far enough, the old stories start walking back. That's the fascinating part to me. We're about to learn some stuff, some historical stuff. The lake is becoming more honest every day. And I don't know who's in that barrel. I don't know if the truth ever lands cleanly. I don't know. Somewhere in the 70s or 80s or 90s, somebody thought Lake Mead was the perfect hiding place for these bodies. And 40 years plus, they were right. Then the climate changed, the water dropped, and the barrels were starting to surface. I cannot wait for the rest of this. Bunch of detectives now standing in the desert looking at Kmart shoes because the weather finally said, all right, boys, let's talk about what happened. That's good times right there. If I could have been into meteorological forensics, I might have done that. That would have been fun. I'd have needed a second pocket protector. I have one. You need two. Speaking of things surfacing and being buried for too long, that was a terrible transition. This is the last week of my master's class. Now, I'm not saying I deserve a parade or nothing, although if one were to walk down my street or nothing, you wouldn't find me complaining. That's not what I'm going to do. A little marching band or something makes sense. Come past my house. I ain't going to call Popo on them or nothing. The class was quantitative analysis, which is a nice academic way of saying math wearing a blazer. It was technically research, technically communication, but there were numbers, and they were everywhere. And you know, when numbers show up, the whole room starts smelling like math, and nobody wants that. Math sucks. Everyone knows that. Now, I know there's some people that like math, I know. Those are the people that like puzzles, spreadsheet formulas, explaining board games, and not getting second dates. I'm not built that way. I see a decimal point, and all of a sudden my childhood starts loading. Bloop. Yeah, suddenly I'm holding a pencil, got one behind my ear, holding one. It's third grade, I'm pretending like I understand fractions. Teacher's all like, I need you to show your work. I'm like, no, thank you. The work is between me, God, and whatever answer I guessed. You just need to deal with it. Here's the thing about a master's degree in the summer. If you don't know this, I'm going to enlighten you. A lot of these master's degrees now are working like the one that I'm in. The program works off of 7-week courses, and that's their profit line, right? They don't want you taking the full 16-week semester. You're finishing in 7. Well, so we take 16 weeks of work, and you're still going to do all the work, but you're going to do it in 7 weeks. Now, the summer semesters are cut into 2 5-week semesters. That's a lot. 16 weeks. I read 25 chapters. I did it in less than 5 weeks because we're on week 4 now. So the normal semester gives you time to think. You can read. You can panic a little bit. Then you can recover. Then you can panic again. But a 5-week class says, welcome aboard. Your next paper's due tomorrow. But you can see the end, and sometimes, like mine, it was almost in this, like it was barely into the next month. I'm like, this class will be over by then. This is the class, if you're going to dread one, quantitative analysis, this is the one you dread. But I've been pretty surprised at how well I've done so far. I'm still waiting on the final grade. We'll figure that out. But those 5-week classes, like somebody just opened a fire hose and dumped them on you right onto your calendar, too, because you have no time for yourself. And I know you probably may not be in grad school, and you may never do that, but you've had pressure on the job. It's the same thing. Monday pops up, and it's already the entire rest of the week is ruined. It's not even 10 a.m. Emails stacking up. Everybody needs answers. Somebody says, we'll circle back. And you just want to drive out in the desert and be like, no. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start selling hats to bald people out here. Tourists come bald. They don't have hats. That's what I'm going to do. Be the hat guy. That's kind of what this class felt like. It was rough, but instead of one boss like normal jobs have, I had statistics, research methods, APA citations, quiz deadlines, and numbers acting like they had legal authority, and somehow, some way, we got through it. And if you haven't done a master's program, you need to know this. If you decide to do it, at least in my discipline, which is communications, they are hung on the specifics. They either say you missed a bunch of specifics, like I had 2 extra numbers italicized that did not require the italicization. That ain't the right way to say that, but they did not need to be in italics. That cost me a half point. So if you make 10 little mistakes, now you're in the 80s struggling to get back to an A. This is the thing that happens in the master's class. So I made it through it. Not elegantly and not gracefully, but I got through it. I had 7+ hours a day typing on my laptop, which kind of wore me out. And then I remembered, hey, stupid, you paid for this. And that's the worst part of grad school. Nobody's forcing me to do this. This was one of those boxes that I wanted to check before I got off of the planet. I knew I had to have a bachelor's degree. I wanted to have a bachelor's. I don't have those. I have a master's degree. I don't have that yet. But when I get it earned, I want to have that. And the reason was I don't mind being stupid, but I don't want to be uneducated. And there's a difference. I just want to know that I gave myself a good shot at not being stupid. And I really feel like it's helped. Don't you? You're volunteering for the stress. That's the thing. The arranged financing, all of it. But I will tell you this, there's no feeling quite like being near the finish line. I'm 80% done. I have 2 more classes and it's over. And that will be inside the next 15 weeks. So starting to walk around my house now. I got a little swagger. Right now, I'm like, I survived something. I'm drinking a little coffee. Air feels a little cleaner. Calculator looking a little nervous, but ain't gonna be long. The assignments are finished. The semester is, 5 more weeks from done, but I can finally return to my real intellectual purpose, which is overthinking hamburgers, reading mob stories, and pretending that my patio is a research facility. So if you're finishing something, anything, a class, project, a terrible work week, or it's just a Tuesday and you had too many meetings, I salute you. We may not be scholars, we may not be heroes, but we made it through the math, and that means more than just the overpriced credit hours that I paid for. That was deep. I feel like that was deep. Thanks for spending time with me today. My name is Bud Ford at Bud Ford Comedy. Hope you have a great day.